Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, MCPS has a new superintendent with local ties. Planning Board approves additional density in single-family home zones. Petition to change term limits for county executives submitted to Board of Elections. And will the broken border be an issue in Maryland's Senate race come November? Our panel of experts will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, and former County Council member and President at Rebuilding Together Montgomery County, Nancy Floreen. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. In order to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Monifa McKnight earlier this year, the school board of Montgomery County named Dr. Thomas Taylor, an alumnus of MCPS schools, as its next superintendent. Mark, Dr. Taylor stated that he hopes to create a culture in MCPS of support, safety, mutual trust, mutual respect, and innovation. Given the tumultuous year that we've just seen, is that possible?
Well, I'm sure it's possible, and I think his introduction is to many people in Montgomery County is a rather clever school day video that he did for the Stafford County Schools. The biggest challenge that he has is going to be developing a relationship with the teachers union. There's going to be a leadership change with the retirement of Jennifer Martin, and that may be perhaps also the biggest difference between our school system and the school system in Virginia that he headed up.
Well, I'm going to follow-up question for you, Mark. I mean, it's not just the teachers union that he has to. There have been some, parental disagreements over the past couple years that are still front and center. Even though there have been court decisions, people are not completely happy with what's going on in MCPS schools.
Yes, and one of the other changes that is being made, or has been made, is that. Don't want to point fingers, but the chief operating officer, Brian Hall, who I may have been responsible for the screw-ups associated with the budget presentation in the last 2 months, is leaving, has left, and I think that will help Taylor put in a team that will be that much more effective to deal with the challenges that you referenced.
Well, we'll see. Nancy, Dr. Taylor's got a great background. And of course, we love the fact that, he went to BCC and is a local kid. But Stafford County, where he was most recently the superintendent, significantly smaller than MCPS. It's like a baseball player going from Class A ball to the majors, well, skipping AA and AAA. Can Dr. Taylor, handle the difference?
Well, let's hope so. If I were him, I would locate Jerry Wiest and get his advice, because it's not just, the teachers union, that's a big thing for him. The staffing is going to be a challenge, and the residents, the parental engagement is I'm sure going to be a challenge. What do we have, a school population that's about 8 or 9 times as much as that of what he's been dealing with in a county that's 8 times larger in terms of population. The expectations here may be different, and you got to have a style that works for the bulk of the population. So that's going to be an interesting challenge for him. I wish him the very best. It's a tough job.
It's way too early to make predictions at this stage of the game. He's just been appointed, but it will be, everybody will have their eyeballs on what's going on in MCPS. It is 55% of our county budget and does impact so much of our residents. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, coming up on our next topic. This week, the Montgomery County Planning Board passed an initiative called Attainable Housing Strategies Project, which will allow duplexes, triplexes, and smaller apartment buildings to be built in single-family home neighborhoods across the county. Not sure how that's going to work. But Nancy, you're our expert on this because you've served on the planning board as well as the county council, and you've got great, insight on this. How big a problem is housing affordability in the county? And is the planning board really consistent with the vision of Montgomery County that we've had in the past? And or are they just trying to, throw some, mud on the wall and see if it sticks?
Well, I do think there is an affordability issue. I talked to a young person who's trying to buy a house, and what they're focusing on now is what's called so-called missing middle in terms of mid-income families and what they could afford to have access to. This initiative, which has not been formalized in terms of zoning or master planning, as far as I understand it, really would permit some additional units in some additional area in R90, R60 zones, which are the ones in the more urban parts of the county, and to a lesser extent in the more suburban areas under certain conditions. So you're talking about adding a duplex here and there, or some for unit configurations. I don't think much of that's going to happen. We already have a little bit of that in Tacoma Park left over from the early days, and you see it all over the district. Duplexes are everywhere, but that's older stock. I don't think I'm not sure that the cost of doing it is going to be worth it to builders, because they can make so much on a tear down these days. This may be more welcome or doable in the Wheaton area, which is relatively close to transit, in parts of Silver Spring, where there's some units ripe for a certain amount of redevelopment. But remember, Montgomery County is pretty much built out in the more urban areas. And so it's going to be a real math question as to whether it's a worthwhile initiative for anyone trying to make the dollars work. And they still have to pay impact taxes and the like in many cases, which affects the affordability of these units.
Well, I mean, the other obvious solution is, of course, supply and demand. I mean, there is a huge demand, and the supply is relatively tight. I mean, if we could open up the ag reserve, perhaps. I mean, we're a changing community now. The ag reserve may be anachronistic. Mark, critics believe this plan is part of the reviled, Thrive Montgomery 2050 plan, and it's designed to destroy Montgomery County and turn it into a borough like the Bronx.
Probably not like the Bronx, but listen, I think, first of all, let me agree with Nancy. I think the economics of this is kind of questionable as to whether or not it actually produces affordable housing for a variety of reasons. I'll just leave it at that. But I think we need to be mindful of the fact that the expectation of so many people who moved to Montgomery County was that they would live in a neighborhood of single family homes. And that's what they expect, and that's what they support. And this is an effort to basically go back on that bargain, if that's if you look at it, what zoning provides, to provide higher density. And it seems to be the attractive solution for so many planners to increase density as a way of increasing affordability, which, again, I agree with Nancy. If you look at the numbers, it's really not quite so true.
Yeah, it probably won't be economical to do mass whole changes in the neighborhoods, but my goodness, I mean, the county has to recognize that we need to make more of our land available, and we have so many parts of the county where it's zoned 2 acres, and it certainly could be rezoned to greater density rather than just adding from single family homes to multifamily. I'm surprised. Any last thoughts, Nancy, before we go?
Well, I'm just saying, Casey, if you're going to run on the platform of getting rid of the ag reserve, you're going to have a challenge here in Montgomery County. So I don't think any large scale initiatives of that of that nature are likely to occur. These are picking at the edges here, something like this, a few units here and there. It's not a bad thing, and it's not going to destroy a community.
We need bold leadership. Mark, any last words? You're good?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, we need bold leadership to rethink Montgomery County for the future. When there's enough pain demanding affordable housing, maybe something will finally get done. All right, this is a curious topic, and maybe it's just something that I find to be a problem, and I'd love to hear from both Mark and Nancy about this. It was announced this week that Senate President Bill Ferguson has taken a job as Senior Vice President and General Counsel with CI Renewables, a Baltimore-based solar energy firm, and that he will be, quote unquote, mostly focused on transactional work rather than lobbying or making policy decisions. Mark, this company has contracts with Howard County, the University of Maryland, and is trying to get additional contracts with the Maryland governmental entities. How then is there not a conflict of interest for him to be president of the Senate and be general counsel for this solar company?
Well, go beyond the contracts, and you're certainly right about that. Renewable energy companies are highly dependent on regulations. They get federal subsidies in a variety of ways. There are policies as to where they're able to sell electricity back to into the grid. I looked this company up in the last year or so. They've contributed, I think it was over $60,000. They're very politically active as donors, which is a pretty good marker of the fact that they are very dependent on politics and government for their business model.
Yeah, Nancy, I don't mind that blame Senate President Ferguson from wanting to make a buck and improve his situation, but his political position, by its very nature, is advantageous for a company that relies on government contracts, government policy, and as its business model. I think he should resign from the Senate.
Well, that's why it's a good hire for them. I don't know how much of their business is Maryland-based, but green energy initiatives are politically important throughout the country these days.
Yeah, but it's putting the thumb on the scale for this one company.
Well,
I mean, it's really putting the thumb on, thumb on it. I'm sorry.
I think it's not a surprise that they would want him, and I'm sure he knows a great deal that he can, where he can add value. I think he's going to have to recuse himself from a certain number of relationships, and we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was disturbed by the fact that he said he's going to mostly work on transactional and not on legislative issues. I think he should do the right thing and go to the company and make some money. When we come back from this short break, another term limit petition is filed with the County Board of Elections. And what role will the immigration debate play in the Maryland Senate race? Stay tuned.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
And welcome back. This week, a petition to change the county charter limiting the number of consecutive terms a person could serve as county executive to 2 rather than 3 was submitted to the Board of Elections to validate the number of signatures to qualify for the November ballot. The past 2 county executives, Ike Leggett and Doug Duncan, each served for 3 consecutive terms. What's the big deal? Why make a change?
You should have asked this particular question to Nancy. So I'm gonna give Nancy's response to you, and what Nancy would have said. Help me out if I'm right here. Is I knew Doug Duncan, and I knew Ike Leggett, and Mark Elric. Your new Doug, and your no Ike. How about that? Do you think I got that right, Nancy?
No
So
comment.
Nancy, I'll let you answer. Let you answer Mark's question, and then I'll give you my own.
I think this is an anti-Mark initiative, nothing
Yeah.
more. Because he will be reelected if he run. Presumably he's going to run again. And if David Blair couldn't defeat him, nobody can in terms of the money that was spent. And nobody else has his name recognition, whatnot. So that's what this is all about. The only question is, will something occur so that would the council go so far as to rewrite this, as some have suggested, put that on the ballot so you have conflicting ballot initiatives, which end up canceling each other out, or at least that could be argued about going into the future. I don't know what the thought in the council is about this. It's dangerous for them to get further involved, I think, for any one of them. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I can think of 2 or 3 council members who would love to have this passed,
Right.
because it opens the doorway for, ambitious young guys, from Silver Spring and from Bethesda. So, I think it would be wise for the council to stay out of it. Mark, any thoughts?
Yeah, and just a reminder that when the referendum was on the ballot for term limits for the county council, it passed overwhelmingly. So this is an idea apart from, Mark Elric. The issue with him, when it passed with the council, it was directed at the entire council. It wasn't all just personality driven. I think a lot of people think that the change in leadership is a good thing, and that's why it gets such strong support.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see. The ball's now in the council's court. I guess I'm presuming that the signatures will be validated and will be sufficient to add this to the this charter amendment to the November ballot. And then it will depend on whether the council wants to intervene. There was a suggestion that Mark is already pleading with the council to provide him a lifeline. So this will be fun to watch during the rest of the summer. Now on to our next topic. This week, Harford County law enforcement announced an arrest of a suspect in the murder of Bel Air, Maryland woman Rachel Marin. The suspect, an El Salvadorian immigrant in the country illegally, was also wanted for a break-in in Los Angeles, California, where he assaulted a young woman, and a murder in his native country of El Salvador. In the run-up to the general election, both parties are taking different positions on the question about the broken border. And how will this issue play out in the U.S. Senate race between former Governor Larry Hogan and Prince George's County Executive Alsobrooks? If you look at their websites, they have very different positions about immigration and what should be done. Mark, what stands out in your view?
Well, so often in this debate, and you're right, there's a real broad division on this topic. The spirit of Ellis Island is invoked. That immigrants are a positive feature and have added to the country, which is certainly true. But what should not be forgotten in that is that what Ellis Island was a screening mechanism. You didn't just land in New York. You went to Ellis Island, and the U.S. government made a determination whether or not you could stay or you would be returned home. And that's been a part of U.S. policy all along. It's been long accepted. And I think we've lost that under the Biden administration when that screening process doesn't take place anymore. And we don't pick and choose who gets to come into the country. And the fact that either a convicted or alleged murderer in El Salvador got into the country, that's certainly not something that would have been consistent with the spirit of Ellis Island.
So, Nancy, it's not just in Maryland, but nationwide, immigration seems to be one of the top 2 or 3 issues on most polls as what people are concerned about. And so will this be played out here in Maryland in the Senate race?
I'm not sure it's gonna make much of a splash. I have not heard this to be an issue, certainly in Montgomery County, and I'm not so sure statewide. my father was an immigrant, and it's true. You didn't want that white chalk mark on your back when you went through Ellis Island, because they would send you back if you were unwell or for a host of various reasons. This is way back when, and the issue of who's to blame for the review process or not remains to be seen. I mean, I can't say. I think we're all a little embarrassed about the funding issues that are out there, where games are being played with funding of immigration. I don't think that's going to filter down to the state of Maryland. I just don't. This has not been a big issue here.
It's also wrapped up in the crime issue, because crime and the border issue has become more of a hot topic. And, there have been several incidents. The one in Bel Air was certainly the most recent here in Maryland, but there have been other incidents where gangs have, brought a lot of crime even to Montgomery County. I don't think I'd dismiss this as an issue. I think it's going to be played out certainly by the Hogan people more and more, because the contrast between Hogan and Alsobrooks in terms of their position is very distinct.
This is another one of those areas where there's really a deep divide in the country, because you look at a lot of polling that suggests that the border issues are a real significant driver of the unhappiness that voters have right now.
It'll remain to be seen. I'm sure that, as I said, I'm sure that if I was, an advisor to Governor Hogan, I would, start running ads, trying to pick apart this as a topic. All right, when we come back, parting shots.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight, both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back, because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back. Now with parting shots, Nancy Floreen.
Well, it's hot out there, and it can make people hot under the collar as well. I just urge everyone to A, hydrate, and B, be kind. We need to be tolerant of our neighbors and our friends these days. There's so much hostility out there in the greater world. We can all make a difference by being kind to one another. Let that car pass you. Don't get so cranky about having to wait at that light. A little generosity goes a long way.
We couldn't agree more. Absolutely, Nancy. Thank you. Mark Uncapher, your parting shot.
We've already talked about one changing of the guards in Montgomery County, the school superintendent, but another one is also taking place, and that is the new police chief, Mark Yamada, who is a internal promotion within the system. Montgomery County has always been advocated having good services and providing good services. And so one of the areas that we are very concerned about, as we've talked about, is having good crime protection. And so we wish our new police chief well.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I think everyone is enjoying. Today is the 21st of June. And of course, it's the longest day of the year. So I hope everybody has had a chance to enjoy the beautiful sunshine. Yeah, it's hot, but it's supposed to be hot in June. Come on, people. Don't be wallflowers here. Anyway, I want to thank you both for tuning in, and I also want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.